Hey everybody, I'm going to be showing you how to automate the discovery of hosts within Zabbix. If you're new to Zabbix, you might have encountered some little complexity and confusion in terms of how to add hosts to actually start monitoring stuff. And I'm going to show you how to automate that so that Zabbix automatically discovers the hosts you want. And then anytime a new host comes into play, it's going to be automatically added to the Zabbix server. So this is super useful if you got a growing in an environment that's growing, shrinking all the time, and you know nobody really wants to enroll hundreds of servers manually into Zabbix, anyways. So before we go in, I want to show you one of the differences. There's two methods to do this, and I'm gonna recommend we do one method, and I'm gonna explain why. So the first method of doing this is the passive way, where you have the Zabbix server polling every host, right? The connection is going to be the Zabbix server says, "Hey, what's your CPU usage?" And then the host is going to respond, "What's your CPU usage?" Your host is going to respond. Now you see the problem here is that when you have multiple networks in play, or different environments on premises and then one in the cloud, or different networks where there's a firewall, some sort of firewall appliance, or maybe even the endpoint itself has the firewall, the host-based firewall, you have to poke a hole in the firewall to allow this connection, right? You're gonna have to allow that. Now, it might work if you have an environment and every VLAN or every subnet can talk to each other freely, which, I mean, you could do it like this, but let's say you want to do zero trust, man, or your environment is just, it's not ideal to do it like this because you've got firewalls all over the place that are blocking stuff. So this is called passive, where the Zabbix server is the one that initiates it. And I would recommend doing active registration, which is the opposite way, where the monitored host is actually the one that's initiating the connection to the Zabbix server. It's going to say, "Hey, Zabbix, what do you want to see?" And the server is going to respond, "Yeah, show me your RAM usage." And like that. So the monitored host in active registration, the monitored host is the one that's initiating the connection. And this is better because now this firewall, you don't have to poke a hole in this firewall to say, "Hey, allow Zabbix server to talk to this guy." Instead, this firewall, all it says, "Hey, you can talk to him," and then as soon as that connection is initiated, the stateful features, or every firewall is stateful these days, will allow it to basically be monitored by Zabbix. So I'm going to recommend we do this approach where we do the active registration, and I'm going to show you how exactly to do that. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go to your actions, auto registration actions, and you're going to want to set up an auto registration action. So let me give you an example. Let's call this add Linux. Here your conditions for active registration are going to be host name, host metadata, or the proxy. And we don't have a Zabbix proxy. I don't want to add it by host name. I want to add it by the host metadata. So what that means is the metadata is something you configure in the Zabbix agent configuration file on the server itself. And I'm going to say it contains Linux. Now, what this means is that it's going to look for something that says Linux in that metadata file before it adds. And then in operations, what you're going to want to do is add the host, add it to a host group. In this case, I want to add it to the Linux servers because if the metadata says Linux, obviously it's going to be a Linux server, and I want to add it to the Linux servers. And then the next thing you want to do is enable the host, and then I would link a template, and since I'm doing the active agent, I would link it to that, and then that's how I would set this up. I already have set this up already. Now I'm going to show you what you need to do to actually set up the configuration file, and this is how you do it. What you want to do is you want to find the host, the server active, and this is the IP address of your Zabbix server. And then the metadata, which was what I was talking about here, Linux. It's going to be searching for that. Now, what you want to do after this, here we go. Now, technically this should start showing up in here. And as you can see, it is. You're going to give it a little bit to make this turn green. But that's basically all you have to do. And as you can see now, it's green. So hopefully this was helpful to you. I'm going to go more in depth on how to set up alerts and get alerted in your team's channel and things like that. How to configure it so that you don't get alerts from stuff that doesn't really matter to you. And yeah, hopefully stay in tune for that, and you'll be able to see.